It sounds like you have a very collaborative approach of like bringing in the engineer and kind of working together to kind of suss out the sound of the
Mhm.
record.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're going to know, the room really well and what gear they have really well. And that's why I
Right.
try to spend some time emailing or a phone call with the engineer, in the month before to really get a sense of everything. If I don't already know that studio well or that engineer well, then I'll go over the stuff with them so that we kind of have our game plan locked in, because then once the band are there, I just really need to focus on them and getting the best takes and making sure they're not running into any problems. Like I had a bass player that was like mashing his strings against his pickups, so it was like if somebody, you have to pay attention to those things because it would ruin the take. And like,
Right.
so the engineer is busy worrying about Pro Tools. I should be worrying about them having any issues like that come up.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting you
So,
say that. It's like it's because it's like these days so often the producer is doing literally everything, and some people are doing literally everything, right? Recording,
yeah.
making sure they're tracking vocals okay, mixing, mastering, God help us,
Hmm.
right? Like, but it
Yeah.
happens. And it's just so like we can't do everything, and we can't multitask well,
Mm-mm.
even if we think we can. I definitely can't.
Yeah.
But
I don't think it
yeah,
makes a better record.
right.
It's like if if I was going to grow all my own food and cook it all, I would not be able to really get much else done. But also, maybe I'm a good gardener and maybe I'm good at that, but I might not be the best chef. Or maybe I'm a really good chef, but I'm like not the best gardener. You know, like you always get a better product when you go full scale with the production. And
Yes.
that's another difficult conversation, is I really do believe that we should make the art that we can afford to make and grow, rather than have like, I'm going to do 12 songs, but I can't afford to do 12 songs, right? So I'm going to cut corners. And then
Right.
you have like a not as a high grade product, but you could have maybe had like two like amazing, really professional, like a
Yes.
great single.
Hmm.
And so that's kind of what I think is really important for.
Yeah. Well, the world we're moving into the single territory, right? That's what's happening these days, anyways. Like,
It's
I guess
true.
budgets are
Yeah.
smaller as it is.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's true. I always tell people, like, yeah, like, let's start with one song, right? Like,
Mm.
because I don't, I mean, I don't work with bands as much as with singer songwriters and like, that kind of stuff. But, one on one usually with like an artist, or maybe it's a group, but like, I'm
Right.
not like in the studio with like a full band usually. Um, and
Mm.
uh, and it's like, let's just start with one song and see also how we're working together, because like committing to a full album, I mean, unless I've worked with them before, like committing to a full album with
Right.
people you don't know how the working relationship is going to be, is like kind of crazy,
Mm.
and there are some people I'm glad I only did one song with, right? So, most people it goes along great, but it's hard to know
Yeah.
always if I'm the right fit for the artist and if they're the right fit for me as a producer, right?
Mm.
So
Mm.
starting
Yeah,
small
that's
sometimes
important.
is also a good move in like that kind of a working relationship
Yeah.
sort of sense. But yeah, you
Yeah.
should.
Yeah.
But I like what you were saying about that, about like the production you can afford. Like do the best you can, and
Hmm.
figure out what that is.
Right. Well, because a lot of times people are like, "Oh, well, I can't afford a producer," and I'm like, "Well, let's have a conversation about what your goals are, because maybe you can afford, something different than you're imagining." And yeah, they're like, "I want 12 songs." I'm like, maybe you do four. Maybe we do four together. Like that's, maybe you can afford four really great songs. So it gets tricky, but I think it's worth having, because I really do believe in quality over quantity.
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah. It's
yeah.
that's a tough conversation sometimes to have, because artists sometimes
Hmm.
just want to like get it out there. Because they want to have that kind of like body of work to represent whatever it is that they're trying to
Absolutely.
represent. And sometimes it's about them, not more than just like getting it on Spotify and getting, it's about them
Yeah.
having that thing out there in the world. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, like I recently
Sure.
finished a record where it was like, I wish we had like more time to like do like a few of these songs like really well, but like we got to get it all done. And, it is what it
Mm,
is, so, you do the best you can.
yeah.
Sometimes you take those gigs anyways. But
Yeah. Well, and that's another important conversation to have, I guess, is content versus art. And I think we're in an era of like content, content, content. And, you know, every artist is going to manage their career differently. Well, then maybe they have a manager that's amazing if they do, as long as the manager is good for them. But, you know, like, I think that's sometimes part of what I hope I can help artists with is not management, but some of that self-reflective guidance and kind of pumping the brakes, because it is really hard. Like I know it's very well what that's like. I feel pressure all the time. Like, gosh, I haven't released any new music in 6 months. Oh no. But it's like, when you look at some of the greatest music and some of the great records that have come out, there were like 4 or 5 year gaps between. And some artists did 2 records before they had a hit. And some artists were signed to the label for like 2 years before they did a record, you know. And it's, when you look at that, it's like, it used to be a different process, and there was a lot more nurture of the artist. And I do really believe in that, because what we're doing now is like a quick, you know, it's like boom and bust penny stocks. And like, you just can't treat art that way. You really,
yeah.
just doesn't.